And we are live. Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show, the show where you can ask questions live as the audience, and we can talk about bullshit that you want to talk about in the insurance world, because that's what we do at Listen to This Bull. This is the first time I've done an episode in more than a month. I feel like I forgot how to podcast. Remington is out hunting in Wyoming, I think, trying to shoot something in the face. He's an avid hunter, if you guys didn't know. That's kind of why his name is Remington. His family does that kind of a thing. All of the first names in his family are, or for the boys, are names of some kind of a gun-related thing. It's kind of cool, weird tradition. But next time he'll be on here, and we can talk about that if you guys do want to. In order to drive the conversation for this show, you just have to ask questions. Today, oddly enough, my name has got my son on here. Let me kill that real quick. Today, I've got Doug Quinn, who's about to be on. He's running a bit late, though, because he was on the phone with a state senator or something along those lines. So I'm giving him the pass. So you get me all by myself for like 10 minutes, maybe 15. So this is your chance, if you are watching this live, to ask me anything you want about bullshit in the insurance world. Anything at all. We've got plenty to talk about. I could, and I'm going to take the moment to talk about our sponsors. We've got a new sponsor, and this is the first time I have a chance to actually say something about them. But let's talk about Claim Titan. If you guys are public adjusters and you need a CRM to keep track of your claims, Claim Titan is one of the best CRMs out there that I've seen. It meets all of the checkboxes that you have. And if there is something missing, Eric, the guy that is developing, is very willing to add that in. He has added every single one of my recommendations, every single one, which is kind of crazy. So take a look at Claim Titan if you're a public adjuster. Inc. Payments, Inc. These are the guys that can fulfill insurance check endorsements from mortgage companies for you. They can even make disbursements to contractors and public adjusters on behalf of policyholders. They can hold a power of attorney and sign off on things. This is a very easy and obvious thing to do for claims so that you don't have to track down those endorsements yourself, figure out how mortgage companies work. It's a whole nother world of just bullcrap that you have to deal with on a regular basis. Why bother with that when it's super cheap to have Inc. take care of it for you and it's all trackable? Then there's the Building Experts Institute, something I am involved in. We just dropped the wind damage to asphalt shingles course. That goes along with the hail damage to asphalt shingle course that we dropped last month. So now there's 3 different courses on there. It is a membership. It is cheap. It is $109 a month. And you get access to all of our online courses. And you even get discounts to some of the live webinar style that we do through Listen to This Bull. So any of the courses that I do myself through Listen to This Bull, outside of Building Experts Institute, I give discounts to Building Experts Institute members. But all of those courses that are on there are super high quality, about master class level production value. But we get as deep as you could possibly get on these subjects. We don't leave anything out to try to get you to buy more stuff in the future. It is what it is. Everything is there. We put a lot of effort into it. So I actually finished up that course. It dropped today. I finished up that course yesterday after uncountable amount of hours put into it, creating diagrams that didn't exist to explain how wind damage happens to certain materials, that they don't exist anywhere. We get into how you can prove that slide out is actually wind related, all these kinds of things. So if you guys are dealing with insurance claims related to asphalt shingle roofs, I highly recommend you check out Building Experts Institute. Go to buildingexperts.institute. That's the website. Hook Agency, if you guys are roofers and you need some help with marketing. Hook Agency does marketing for roofing companies, and they do a damn good job of it. There is a fun video you can check out online that Hook just dropped where Tim Brown, the owner of Hook, was on a roof for 24 hours straight. And he was freezing because it was up north. It was the time of year you probably shouldn't do that on. So it was very interesting. He tried to get me to come out there. I didn't have a chance to. I really wanted to. It would have been a lot of fun. American Policyholder Association, which Doug, as soon as he gets on here, is going to represent fully. In fact, I'm even going to skip over that one since he's going to be here to talk about it himself. And then we got the Huggins Law Firm, that is Remington Huggins Law Firm, He also sponsors Listen to Bull podcast. If you guys have any issues or need an attorney or for property insurance in the states of Georgia or Florida, Huggins Law Firm is one of the best I've met. They definitely know how to deal with the bull. All right, I got a few questions on here. Well, this isn't a question, but this is Eric from Claim Titan. Best single sentence to snap adjusters out of. No, this isn't Eric from Claim Titan. I'm sorry. This is Eric from Rhino. Best single sentence to snap adjusters out of the Symbility is a reasonable price model mindset. I would say that if you were trying to get them off of that as a reasonable price model, there's no real way to do that unless you have a legitimate bid. If you have an actual contractor bid, then you don't need an estimate anymore. The whole point of Symbility or Xactimate is to set a reserve or to set the actual cash value of something that someone might not even have the work done for. So if you have a legitimate bid from an actual contractor that is contracted to do the work, then it doesn't matter what Symbility says or Xactimate says. That's what they owe unless they believe that that is unreasonable. And there are different ways in insurance policies that insurance companies can then say, well, we don't believe that's unreasonable. They could go to appraisal, for example. There might be arbitration or mediation available in your state. You could even sue. So carriers have those options as well if they believe that the amount that you are claiming is unreasonable, if they think that there's a disagreement over the amount of loss. So the easiest way to snap adjusters out of the Symbility argument is to say, well, I have a legitimate bid from a contractor. And hopefully it's not done on Xactimate or Symbility as well. But it is an estimating platform. That's what it's designed for. Hopefully that answered the question. Any new classes that favor insured against PTI's breach of contract bullshit? PTI. Is that supposed to be TPA? Third party administrator? I don't know who PTI is. Is that a specific insurance company? I don't know. Against PTI's breach of contract. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You'll have to give me a little bit more information on who PTI is. And most likely that's going to be a question that's better suited for an attorney anyway. And Remington's not here. But if you can give me more information on that, then we can go for it. Panama Matt, Indiana Mulholland. I haven't heard that one. We're forever grateful. Also, thanks to Remington, guest and sponsors. Appreciate it. People's Trust Insurance. That's PTI. New cases in favor against People's Trust breach of contract bullshit. I don't have any information on that. I know that there is a case that's there. I don't know anything that's going on. To be honest, I've been so lost in the weeds with that Building Experts Institute course on wind that I'm still behind on shit. I think I got through my emails for the first time in 2 weeks today. So I haven't had a chance to follow up on what's going on there. But if you have information on it, feel free to post it in here. I'd love to get some more for the audience if anybody else is. How is the new little shit testing going? It isn't going great, Eric. For those of you that don't know, the lil shit is my smaller hail cannon. It's handheld. It's small enough you can bring it onto a roof. The benefit of that is if someone were to say, well, that's not hail, that's wear and tear. That's not hail, that's improper installation, something along those lines. That granule loss is blisters. It's not hail. And you could legitimately take a hail cannon up onto a roof, shoot the same size hail that supposedly hit that roof at terminal velocity, which is probably slower than what it hit that roof at, and fire it at that roof and see what kind of damage it creates on that roof. And if it matches the damage that's surrounding it, that would be good evidence that it's actually caused by hail. The problem that I'm having, though, is getting consistent speeds out of it. Shooting downward requires me to hold the hailstone in the barrel before it can be released. So I've got these 3D printed, elastomeric 3D printed TPU material, basically little fingers on 3 sides holding the hail in place. And they're kind of bent a little bit, so they'll just kind of sit on there. And then I have to shoot air at it and push it across those, bend those little fingers to allow the hail pass. Problem is those fingers take up some room in the barrel. Very small amount, but enough room that sometimes the stone gets stuck a little bit too long and then fires faster. And sometimes if it's not as tight a seal as it could be, it comes out a little bit easier and therefore falls slower because some of that air is able to get around it. So I'm having consistency issues in speed. I don't know how to fix that. So any of you engineer-minded people out there that have any ideas on that, I am all ears. Doug Quinn has just joined us. I'm going to go ahead and pull him in. If you guys don't know who Doug Quinn is, this is the man that is about to make everything better. Doug, how you doing?
Good, Matt. How are we?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad you made it on. I understand we're on the phone with somebody important, so I guess we can't force you to do something.
Well, now I'm on a Zoom with somebody important, so that's important.
Well played. So I really wanted to bring you on to the show, and Remington was really hoping to be here for this one as well, but things didn't work out with his schedule. I really wanted to bring you on the show to really talk about new things that have happened for the APA. We have seen so much stuff coming out, so many articles and news channels promoting different stories where we see your face on those stories and your words in those articles. And it's exciting, especially from someone that's a part of the organization. I really think it might be great for us to talk about what's really going on out there.
Sure. Well, you are an integral part of the organization as a board advisor. You are one of our leaders and one of the people that I rely on for advice and counsel because we can't do this alone, right? So it's a team effort. APA is a pretty big team. We've got the leaders in all of the various industries and the thought leaders and the innovators involved. That's the reason why it's able to work. And we certainly appreciate you putting the effort in that. I know you're very, very helpful. There are some people that are, they step in and they help and they do what they can. And there are other people who make it their business to have a little bit of a larger footprint. You are one of those people. And that's exactly what a board advisor is supposed to do. So very appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasantries aside, what's going on with the APA?
Now, did we put pleasantries aside for the rest of the conversation or just for this moment? Look, what's going on with the APA is, we had started this saying that we are going to be the only organization in the country that goes after carrier side fraud because nobody does it, including the prosecutors that you elect and pay with your tax money. And it's not necessarily their fault in most cases. They're only getting cases walked into them by insurance company SIUs. Almost 100% of the fraud cases submitted to prosecutors or come from insurance companies themselves. And for some odd reason, the insurance companies never seem to turn themselves in. I don't know why. So, if you're only putting cases defending insurance companies in the top of the funnel, well, that's all it's going to come out of the bottom is prosecution against public adjusters, contractors, consumers, plaintiffs' attorneys, anybody who seems to be on the carrier, on the consumer side is who gets investigated for fraud. And P.S., there are some actual criminals in there who deserve to be locked up and investigated. But, our point is fraud happens on all sides of the claim process. So therefore it needs to be prosecuted, investigated and prosecuted on all sides. So we've been pushing hard. We started with the Superstorm Sandy engineering fraud scandal where the engineers on the ground may have agreed that it was storm damage, but the firms that were hired by the insurance companies such as US Forensics were changing them behind the scenes and sometimes just adding the word not. Damage was not done by storm forces. So
is that, just to clarify, that was the engineering firms making those edits or the insurance company making those edits?
To the best of our knowledge, we believe it was done at the at the engineering firm who is hired by the insurance company. And by the way, that company, US Forensics, they're still out there. They're still getting hired by insurance companies. And I can't imagine what insurance company that spends a lot of their budget on advertising. Insurance is one of the top advertisers in the country, something like $15 billion a year in just digital advertising alone they spend. I can't imagine who's doing so much spending so much of our premium money to convince us what good friends they are and how good they're going to take care of us to establish a reputation, and then is going and hiring a company like that.
I mean, it's very much like a good neighbor to just hide things from you, the ugly parts of what they do behind really nice flower arrangements.
Yes, so it is.
$1 billion in advertising, digital advertisements only. If only they put that much money towards the claims, how many of their current clientele would they be able to retain? I wonder.
Then you wouldn't have to spend all that money convincing us on TV what a good neighbor you are, or good hands, or good friend, or on our side. We would see it when we actually stepped up and we were in need and we got a full, honest claim paid. So, look, the APA kind of went through the first few years. There were many things. I almost want to teach a class what we didn't know when we first started. We kind of have the same success as Sandy. We walked into an attorney general's office, said, here's some evidence, and that person would jump on it and go out and do an investigation within a week or two and go back a couple of weeks later and make an arrest. Unfortunately, that's not reality. One of the things we didn't realize is we have to spend so much time flying around the country convincing prosecutors and elected officials that insurance companies actually commit fraud, or the vendors that they hire, the engineers and the TPAs, actually commit fraud.
Do you think that you've convinced them now?
We're getting closer every day. Like we're trained to be able to follow body language, look at eye contact, tone of voice, and I can tell when I'm speaking to somebody who is a professional, politician, when they're an elected official. I can tell when someone's hearing something for the first time. And in many cases, we were the first person to ever come into their office and say that, the carrier side is committing fraud. And the reason why is because they've only heard from insurance company lobbyists their whole career. The insurance company is decades ahead, if not 100 years ahead, saying, hey, everyone's stealing from us. Insurance fraud is just happening against insurance companies. There are some states where the state penal code only defines insurance fraud as fraud committed by outsiders against the insurance company. It doesn't even define insurance fraud as fraud committed against a consumer or policyholder. So, it's a long road to overcome the head start that they have. Plus, they are, the second most powerful lobby in the country. They spend on lobbying and campaign contributions just behind number one, and number one is, of course, Big Pharma. So that's a lot to overcome. I mean, we're not spending that kind of money, but we are the only organization in the country that is collecting and vetting criminal complaints against the insurance industry and submitting to public prosecutors. So it's an uphill battle. We're going against the stream. We are fighting the status quo. And P.S., that status quo, a lot of people have an interest in keeping it the way it is. A lot of people's fat country club lifestyle, corporate jobs, political careers depend on the status quo staying exactly as it is. So we are the upstarts. We are people that are going against that. It's certainly not an easy road, but having, some of the top people in the industry who really know what's going on, behind us makes all the difference in the world. And now we're just starting to see some real traction. We're starting to have now whistleblowers coming forward to us and saying, hey, this is what's going on behind the scenes. Now the media is calling us. Like I said, I'm late because I just got off the phone with a reporter from Louisiana who called me because now they reach out to us and they want to know the true story of what's going on. They know we have that. They know that we are not afraid to speak it. And the APA media strategy has evolved. It's evolved very strong this year. Part of our media strategy is isolating because bear in mind, all that money spent on advertising is a lot of power, right? All that money spent on lobbying is political power, but money spent on advertising is a lot of power within it. It speaks to, there are many ways that it influences what's going on in favor of the insurance industry. One of which there was a study that from 2005 that showed it actually influences the jury pool, because the jury pool is like, oh, my good friend, good hands, good neighbor would never do that. So they come in with a bias because you're constantly getting gaslighted by the insurance industry. You can't watch a TV show without seeing several insurance industry commercials. I can't watch a YouTube video without seeing Flo or the gecko on there. So that
You can't
influence
watch the
people.
news without seeing a commercial about an insurance company either.
Yes. And the other thing it influences the stories you won't see, because you go to the media, you go to the news, you go to print journalism, and some of their biggest advertisers are insurance companies. And do they really want to lose that money because it's a struggling industry? People willing to tell the truth and make a reasonable salary are getting squeezed out. So it is a struggling industry, and they can't afford to lose those big advertisers. And then there's a bit of intimidation that happens with these, big Darth Vader law firms that can have unlimited pockets to come after you and crush you. So, a famous example, we talk about the stories that you don't see. A famous example is, we constantly see in cat zones signs that say report insurance fraud, report contractor fraud. The attorney generals and the insurance departments are going after public adjusters. We constantly see this, and we're always like, well, where's the billboard that says report fraud committed against you by your insurance company? They don't exist. So the APA went to put one up in Fort Myers after Hurricane Ian, and a national billboard company. We sketched it out and it just was simple, defrauded by your insurance company. Here's the APA, here's our website, reach out. And a national billboard company said, oh, we can't run that. We don't like to go negative. But you have no problem saying, hey, contact us. You have no problem with that. One of my on my Facebook personal page, the background, the cover photo is a billboard that I saw. I shot a picture of here in New Jersey after Superstorm Sandy. It says insurance fraud equals prison, and this big intimidating picture, a giant billboard on the Atlantic City Expressway. And I saw that. I shot a picture because they forgot to add the line insurance fraud equals prison, but they forgot to add, unless of course you're an insurance executive.
As it turns out, that you get a little pass if you're an insurance executive in that regard. I remember specifically my own example. I had a story with Fox in Georgia about discontinued materials that were on roofs, and they aired my story in 2015, and they had my face on there, and I said something negative about Allstate. They interviewed me for like 2 hours, and the only thing that made it on there was one sentence I said where I happened to name Allstate. And of course, I got blacklisted by Allstate, which they still claim doesn't happen, but it totally happens. So I brought them another story just 2 years ago after we were attempting to improve policyholder language or policyholder protections in the legal system. There was a bill that was being presented to try to help the state of Georgia involving appraisal. They wouldn't run the story about it, and he told me over the phone that he was not allowed to run a story that was against insurance carriers because, and he specifically said it, because they are our biggest advertisers.
Yep.
They have rules. So he was able to run a story that was a follow-up to my original story from 2015, and that was the only way he can run anything, but he couldn't say names. Couldn't name insurance carriers specifically. And I think that seems to be the issue for a lot of the stories that we're seeing right now.
That is actually one of the ways we've isolated. One of the ways they pull punches, and one of the ways is they'll tell the story, but they won't name the insurance company. I mean, we were on Lester Holt earlier in the year, one of the top 5 watched daily television programs in the country. That's a lot of power, have that kind of ratings. And they interviewed our whistleblowers. They interviewed me. They told the story of what happened with the fraud that's being committed, alleged fraud that's being committed. But they never named any of the insurance carriers or their TPAs. That's one of the ways they pull their punches. So the APA, part of our media strategy is to isolate, number one, which reporters, which investigative journalists, really what you're talking about, are smart enough and have the work ethic to understand what's going on, because it's a lot more complicated in many cases than them just, trimming line items out of claims. To have, to understand what's going on, and then have the editorial support to print the truth. And there's not a lot of them, but we keep a database and we feed them all of our premier research. We feed them, all of our top intelligence because, they're going to do the right thing with it. So, what you'll see is the APA getting tremendous credibility because, we're on Lester Holt, because we're in the Washington Post. We're talking to 60 Minutes now. We're in the Miami Herald and Tampa Bay Times, and a lot of these papers that in their home state and sometimes nationally are really dominant voices. So we have a key goal to educate not just the elected officials and the prosecutors, but also the media who have been gaslighted for all this time to what's really going on. So that's really kicking in now, and you'll see the two work together because there have been times. And we're talking a lot about Florida now because Florida seems to be the bad boy poster child of state insurance markets because of the kind of carriers that are in there, because of what they're doing, because of their influence over elected officials, because of the incredible amount of campaign contributions that they've made down there. So there's a lot that's going on in Florida. And we understand that what's going on there, it's going to show up in your home state because a lot of people are like, who cares about Florida? Oh, no. The insurance industry has a clear strategy. They try it out in a state. They write model legislation. They get it pushed through a legislature that they think they own and control. They do a sort of a media campaign. Oh, it's about frivolous litigation and fraud, et cetera. And then when they have success, they then take that on the road. So we're starting to see a lot of what's going on in Florida show up in Louisiana. We're starting to see some dribbles in Texas. You may see some in Georgia and North Carolina, and they basically take it on the road. And one of the things they do, and you and I have worked together in front of the Georgia legislature to quash anti-consumer legislation. What they do is they get this model legislation in, and then they go on the road to other states and say, hey, Georgia's doing this. Why aren't you? Florida's doing this. Why aren't you? And legislatures have this weird kind of thing where they don't want to feel like they're not doing something that another state is doing. Conversely, they won't put it in new legislation unless somebody has already done it because they're afraid of taking a risk like that. So they'll find the one state that'll do it, and then they take it on the road. So we are sort of fighting. That's Omaha Beach. That's the point where where we're really fighting because we know this is going around the country. So we're doing a lot.
Like a day of gigs to me.
That didn't turn out too well, so I'm not quite sure who you're suggesting our role is in that analogy. Are we the people that had a bad invasion and got abandoned, or are we the communist Cuban government?
Yeah, I retract my statement.
You did say all pleasantries aside, so
yeah, I did say that, so that we're fine.
You and I can beat each other up a little bit. We appreciate that. Anyway,
so out of all the stuff that has happened, though, all the news articles, all of the news stations you've been on, has anything truly significant been brought to light?
Yes. So much, and we're still in the process of bringing it to light because a lot of people are sort of saying, well, the whole Sandy thing, that was a one-off, and they've cleaned up their act since then, and now we've in fact caught them in Florida doing the exact same thing. The inspectors are out there, they're turning in legitimate reports, and they're being changed back at their headquarters, either the TPA or the insurance company. And I have seen personally the evidence, and it is compelling. That this is exactly what's happening. They're hacking these reports by 70, 80, 90% in some instances. And the adjusters who are on the carrier side are saying, this is wrong. Because look, the people on all sides have a conscience, right? There's fraudsters on all sides, and there's decent people on all sides. So many people we see who work as consumer advocates now, policyholder advocates, started out working as insurance adjusters, defense attorneys. And they just couldn't stand what they were seeing. We also understand that not everybody can just say, hey, I'm going to pull the plug and jump to the other side. can have a career change. There are a lot of people that are just pinned. They got mortgages, they got tuition to pay, they got to feed their family, but they're getting ulcers, they're losing sleep because they are being pressured to do things that are unethical and in some cases illegal. So we had a few of them come forward in Florida, and it was almost identical to what we saw when we first started in Sandy, where we all met each other to start in Sandy. And the Florida authorities tried to bury it. They tried to ignore it. And then, because of our media strategy, it showed up in the Washington Post. And you can ignore the local Florida news station, the local Florida paper, but you can't ignore the Washington Post. And then they couldn't trip over themselves fast enough to open a criminal investigation.
It was fun though. We ended up having Brianna from Washington Post on the show to talk about that very story. And there's so much that came to light in that. And it's not just the carriers cutting the price as if they're starting negotiation low, because maybe that doesn't seem so unreasonable. They were removing words from or captions from photos. They were deleting certain photos from the system. It's a lot worse than just starting negotiations lower than what the IA had put in place. But the demagogues on the carrier side, the defense attorneys that are out there trying to push their own agenda as if they're lobbyists, all over LinkedIn, want you to believe that it's just them reducing how much is written because the IA didn't follow internal guidelines for estimatics or something. It's a lot worse than that. You can't justify deleting photos of damages or deleting captions where the caption said damaged by wind or damaged by hail. They delete that and just not say it at all. Obviously, that's underhanded. There's no justification for that. So it's a big deal. There's definitely stuff that has come from that is significant. Is there any investigation actually happening at the state level?
They claim there is. We are following up with them because the APA took that case because, again, it went to attorney Stephen Bush, who is also an APA board advisor. To his credit, where we see evidence of this kind of stuff all the time and all over the country. But part of it is there's not enough compelling evidence that a prosecutor would take it. And we promise prosecutors, we're not gonna turn a case over to you that's weak. We're not gonna, our national prosecution coordinator, Dominic Dugo, ran a $13 million a year insurance fraud department in California, one of the top insurance fraud prosecutors in the nation, co-chair of the was a co-chair of the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud. And he makes a promise that, look, I'm not going to send you a case that I myself would not recommend to the DA prosecution. Our name goes out. There's a lot of cases I know fraud went on there, but it's just not enough evidence that we would want to damage our reputation to a prosecutor. We'd want to have a prosecutor waste his time in front of a jury. But we see it. You just got to have all of the pieces. So there's a lot of that out there. And P.S., fraud is uncovered in civil court all the time. But when a lot of the plaintiff's attorneys find fraud, they use it to settle the case. The insurance company rolls over immediately. They may even pay a premium so that everybody signs an NDA, so no one's allowed to talk about it. Nobody loses their job. Nobody goes to jail. Everyone's in place to commit the same fraud tomorrow. So, what Stephen Bush did differently was he said, look, I could take this and make a class action suit, cha-ching. Number one, I can get justice for my consumers right away, which obviously is, part of their mandate to get justice. But in this particular case, the policyholders were not necessarily his clients. They were the whistleblowers who came forward to him because they trusted him as being an honest person. They had dealt with him in court before, et cetera. And what Stephen said is, I'm bringing this right to the APA. And now part of it is smart business sense because, now the APA is paying for some of the investigation. Now it'll be part of the criminal authorities as part of the criminal discovery that will bring a lot of stuff out. And what are your odds of winning on the civil end once there's been a criminal conviction? Obviously much better. And there's no saying it doesn't go the other way around. Look, OJ got off on the criminal end and he lost on the civil end afterwards. So there's no loss on that.
You have really big hands either.
or shrinking gloves, depending. So he maybe should have picked a new dry cleaner, or the defense prosecution should have picked a new dry cleaner. But what Stephen Bush did, and he's one of the heroes of the story, along with the whistleblowers, is he brought it right to the APA. We did an investigation immediately. We saw enough evidence there that said this, deserves a referral. They had already gone and testified to the state legislature. They had already gone to the head of the state legislature, who said, and they brought a thumb drive with all their evidence, and he refused to put it in his computer because, I can't do that. That might be a virus. Now, meanwhile, right down the hall, I'm sure there's a very extensive technology department that could make sure he's safe. But they basically tried to say, oh, we don't see the evidence. We don't have cooperative witnesses, which seems to be a Florida favorite. We had one witness. It was during COVID. He was in Texas for the winter. They wanted him to come in for an interview. And he said, look, it's COVID. I'm not traveling. I'll be there at the end of February. So like in a month and a half. Can we do it? Can you wait until then? They said no. He said, can we do it on Zoom? They said no. And then they buried the case because they didn't have a cooperative witness. It
seems a little convenient.
Well, that's what we call the Florida TwoStep. They pass it between the DFS Florida investigators and the Office of Insurance Regulation, who doesn't investigate criminal acts at all. Technically, all they really do is fine, and they don't really do much of that with something like 100,000 complaints over the course of the last few years, with almost very little action taken. So, once it hit the Washington Post, they absolutely did open an investigation. To be fair, some of these investigations do take a year or more. I want to see an arrest happen immediately, but our own investigation and prosecution team has told us, it takes a while for this stuff. This is, white collar crime. It's complicated.
So even though it's taking this long, and that makes us all think that it's probably just been swept under the rug, and
nope. We are watching it like
there might actually be some investigation. I hope that's true.
We are watching it like hawks. The last investigation of ours that they buried in 22, which was about, I'd want to say about 8 months before Hurricane Ian hit, we made sure we put that out to the press. And Brianna Sachs put that on the front page of the Washington Post. I
said her name wrong earlier.
What's that?
I said Brianna Banks earlier. I don't know who that is. Sorry. I just realized that in case she's watching, I'm an asshole. I'm sorry.
So, and look, in print journalism, there's one shining center of stage spotlight, front page above the fold. And that story about UPC Insurance Company and how Florida regulators let them get away with murder was on the front page of the Washington Post above the fold. And we gave her full access to the full criminal complaint because, look, we're clear about this. We came to fight. We came to fight on behalf of the American consumer. And you are not going to look me in the eye and tell me this isn't happening because, number one, I'm a victim of all this. This is what I lived through, and this is how I got into it. And number two, we see it all the time. And you're not going to ignore us. We're not going away. So you can try, but there will obviously, we are a spotlight. These people do their dirt in the darkness. And what we are here to do as the APA is to be a spotlight on what's really going on and letting people know. So we hope they clean up their act. And there's a legitimate investigation going on. I have no reason to believe there isn't. One of the things we are worried is that they're going to arrest some low-level person. And look, insurance organizations are like a drug organization. It is vertically integrated. So just like, the narcotics squad starts with the guy on the corner and arrests him and lets him look at a jail sentence and gets him to roll over on the next person because he's clearly not the kingpin selling nickel bags on the corner. They'll get him to say, well, who gave you those orders? Who are you buying from? Who's your supply? And they do that to the next person and the next person. I will tell you with this case, a determined team of Boy Scouts could figure out what's going on here. It's not a mystery. And it's just a function of, is there the political will to go up the chain and get to the people that are writing the campaign contribution checks? Because when you get closer to those levels, those organizations, now it becomes a problem for some of our elected officials who have taken a lot of money from the insurance industry. So, are we going to watch and see some 22-year-old, claims processor at a TPA with an emergency adjuster's license, not even experienced, and see that person get arrested and leave it at that? Or are they really going to go up and say, who gave you orders, and find, get to the heart of the problem? So we are watching this very carefully. We're in contact with the Florida authorities periodically, letting them know. And same with other areas that we have criminal cases in, such as Louisiana. We're watching, we're paying attention. We're going to make sure that the right thing is done here. And if not, we're not going to be quiet about it. If not, we have plenty of press contacts who will let your constituents know, and the people that you are paid to serve know, that you had a chance to defend them, to make sure this didn't happen again. And you fumbled it, whether intentionally or, not, you fumbled it. We look at that first case we turned over with UPC in Florida. We submitted it with whistleblower complaints in July of 21. We had 2 more whistleblowers came forward. We resubmitted it to Florida DFS in January of 22. And imagine, now let's fast forward a little bit. I haven't seen any recent stats. The last I checked, OIR has not released stats more recently than June. So we're going on almost 4 months where they haven't given us claim stats. And I haven't checked it a couple of weeks. Who knows? It's up there now. But as of June, 200,000 claims from Hurricane Ian had been closed with 0 payment. 0. People who had, and businesses who had both a loss and insurance, had their claim closed with 0 payment. And there were another 130, 140,000, 160,000 claims that were closed with payment, but we know a significant amount of those from the complaints we're getting were underpaid. So
just to be fair to the insurance industry on this, is it possible, because deductibles are super high in Florida, is it possible that those closed without payment include those that were closed because they were under deductible legitimately?
It is certainly possible. I don't know if it would be 200,000.
I don't know if it'd be that many either.
And
I'm just trying to be as fair as
Matt,
possible there.
some of the evidence we saw from the whistleblowers who came forward, they were given orders, we're not replacing any roofs in this storm, we're just going to repair. And the repairs that were authorized came back at 144 shingles, 144 tiles, which, by the way, is just below your deductible. And they know the structural integrity of the roof was damaged. They know that's not an adequate repair. They know that roof, they wrote for that roof to be replaced. But we're going to do 144 tiles. By the way, it's just below your deductible. You're entitled to nothing. So are some of those people legitimately under the deductible? Sure, I'm sure. Or some of those people not putting legitimate claims in, because consumers steal too, right?
Obviously.
Or maybe they were confused, or maybe they're sure. I don't believe it's in excess of 200,000.
It's a lot of people to make that mistake. So to be fair, the deductibles are crazy high in Florida, especially for wind events, named storms, that kind of thing. So
sure.
A lot of it.
Here's the point to move forward.
Yeah.
Imagine if Florida had done a legitimate investigation in 2021 and January of 2022, the message they would have sent to the insurance industry. That moral hazard where you can just get away with murder is gone. If you take advantage of our constituents, of Florida policyholders, especially storm victims who are now being victimized twice, we will investigate. And if we find criminal activity, we will prosecute. And the laws in Florida are pretty clear about insurance fraud and pretty severe about the penalties. If it's over $100,000, it's up to 30 years in prison you're looking at.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Yes. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Had they done it and sent that message, it would have wiped out that moral hazard. It would have been a deterrent, so that when Ian came 6-7 months later, the insurance industry knew, we better play this one clean.
And instead, we got new legislation that prevents policyholders from being able to sue their carrier for bad faith and having their attorney's fees paid. Now that doesn't happen
Yep.
unless I mean, there are ways, but it's generally not going to happen so quickly and easily. It makes it very
Yes.
difficult.
Yes, and by the way, you have an insurance company who has deep pockets and unlimited budget for their legal department, versus you have a consumer who maybe has 2 weeks of paycheck in the bank, especially maybe less after getting wiped out in a natural disaster. And I personally was one of the people that lived through that, having to sue my carrier after Sandy, and I'd never sued anyone in my life. I was ashamed to do it, but they backed me into a corner and I had to pay $42,000 in legal fees out of my pocket. And that's $42,000 that did not go into the repair of my home. So what
Yeah.
people do when they don't get enough money to repair their home, they go into debt. They build something not as good and not as worth as much as it was. They spend their kids' college funds. They spend their retirement. It is a loss of generational wealth for that family. It will have a generational impact.
Oddly enough, that argument is the very argument that a lot of insurance lobbyists have against public adjusters, that the use of a public adjuster will take money away from the policyholder, money that they could put towards the repairs. So,
attorneys too. Yeah, sure.
but apparently giving it to attorneys for them is okay. It's just bullshit. That's the word that I'm looking for. It's bullshit. Anyway, let me ask you this.
Look, I'm not
all
in the
this
industry.
stuff that's coming out, do you think that it is making the insurers afraid or politicians afraid to continue these activities?
We are hoping so. I don't know if the insurers are feeling fear. They worry about their profit margins. Politicians, look, if you're an elected official, aligning yourself with the insurance industry against your own constituents is political suicide. And the only reason why they've been able to get away with it till now is because nobody's calling them out on it. And that party's over. Because we are here and we're not keeping quiet, and we have our own investigators, we have our own researchers, and we take the research that we have and we feed it directly to the press. Sometimes you'll see the APA's footprint on it. There'll be a quote from me or a statement about the APA. Sometimes you won't even see our fingerprint on it. You won't even know that it came from us. But the point is to get it out there and let people know what's going on and know the truth. We are here to be a spotlight, so that those who do dirt in the darkness and victimize consumers don't get away with it.
I mean, statements like that make me proud to be part of the APA. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And one of the positive things that did come out of the Florida situation so far is they tripped all over themselves to put out this Insurer Accountability Act, which is a start.
Billy mentions something about that. He says, let's not forget Florida insurance companies did nothing until after the new legislation was passed, the legislation to keep the policyholders' attorney fees from being paid. Then a flurry of low ball offers and under-deductible letters came out at that point. You might be right.
Yeah. And look, a lot of people say this new legislation, holding the carriers accountable, saying they can't change reports without having to identify who changed it and and justifying why. It gives a little bit extra budget to OIR and DFS to investigate. The OIR has to do quarterly reports now. There's some pluses to it. One of the things we're concerned is they didn't put any teeth into it. We're not going to see anybody arrested behind that, but it's a start. One of the things we're very disappointed about is we were very excited about a clause that required insurance carriers to be transparent about their profits and payments to their affiliates, which is one of the ways we see them shifting money out of the insurance company is through hiring their own affiliates. And there was language in it that required them to report on payments to affiliates. There was resistance to the bill, so that clause was removed, and the bill passed right away. So we're not done with the start.
The argument against that language from carrier lobbyists.
Somebody actually one of the state legislators and said, "Why was that removed?" And he said something to the effect of, "Well, we don't want to kind of upturn the apple cart. We're just having carriers come in, and they're They're afraid that more carriers are going to leave. What they don't understand is it's part of the cycle. We're calling it hashtag wash, rinse, repeat. These companies come in, they're owned by hedge funds, private equity funds, family trusts and partnerships. They'll come in, they'll get gifted a big chunk of business out of Citizens or by one of the companies that recently failed. So now they've got a book of business of 200,000, 300,000 policies representing $600 million, $700 million of annual premiums. They had no acquisition cost. They didn't have to advertise to get that business. They didn't have to pay agent commissions. They didn't have to underwrite. Here's a box, crank the box, and it'll spin out $500 million a year for your company. And then they will come in and do their traditional premium harvesting. Because again, a lot of these are not real insurance people. Look, I worked for a real insurance company, a Fortune 500 insurance company, my whole adult life. And these are insurance people. They want to come in and help have a business indemnifying people for their losses at a reasonable profit. Nothing wrong with that in a capitalist society. And people there took pride on helping people recover from loss. Those are real insurance people. Those are the people that love the business, that thrive on the business. These are business people. They came in to premium harvest and then do this profit shifting shell game of either excessive executive compensation, bonuses, ownership dividends, and above and beyond that, hiring their own affiliates and shifting the money out of the insurance company. They leave just enough in the carrier for reserves to keep the regulators happy. And if the company doesn't fail, great, we keep doing it, shifting the money to our affiliates, up the line to the holding company, offshore to the private equity fund or hedge fund that's anchored in the Cayman Islands or Bermuda, two of the biggest tax shelters. If the company does go under, well, we've already got our profits protected. We walk away counting our money. We stick the State Insurance Guarantee Association with the open claims. Wash, rinse, repeat. Come back later and do it all over again.
There's no drawback to them at that point. It might as well just be filing for bankruptcy after they drain the accounts. It's essentially what they're doing and walking away without bankruptcy being on their record. So they could just do it all over again. Let me ask you this.
There's a law, I believe, in Florida says that you cannot be an executive or a trustee for a company if you've done that for a company that's been in liquidation. But hey, we'll bring my business partner in. We'll bring my brother-in-law in.
Yeah,
he'll be the trustee or the board of directors or the executive.
So the next time that someone gets put into handcuffs as a result of some research and pushing of information from the APA, how are you going to celebrate?
I don't want to celebrate somebody getting arrested.
I know, but really, how?
Means to an end. What I would celebrate is a fraudster who had no business having people's financial futures in their hand, having someone's most valuable asset, the American dream, their home, in their hand. That person has lost the right to be in the business and have that fiduciary capacity, and they need to be removed. I'll celebrate that the consumer never has to worry about that person. Now let's go on to the next because it's a long line. And the other thing I'll celebrate is for every fraudster like that, every TPA, engineering firm, claims personnel, who is doing that, there's somebody sitting on the sideline, an honest, hardworking American who can't feed their family, because how do you compete with someone who's willing to lie to tell the insurance company what they want to hear? How do you compete with somebody who's willing to break the law to cheat an American family, all in the name of insurer profits? So those people are sitting on the sideline. We need to get the scammers and the fraudsters out and get the hardworking, honest Americans in and restore integrity to the insurance industry. Insurance is very important. People think we're anti-insurance. We are not. It's a really important tool that the average American can recover from a loss that would otherwise be catastrophic and move on with their lives and continue to grow and have the American dream. We just want to see it work the way it's supposed to work. We don't want carriers to pay $1 less than what they owe, nor do we want them to pay $1 more than what they owe. And for all the people that are on the other side committing fraud and stealing from the insurance companies, hey, fuck you too, because you hurt all of us. Those people need to go as well. The only reason why the APA doesn't get involved in that is because everyone else in the world is doing it. There's plenty of resources. If you see a contractor, a consumer, a public adjuster, an attorney, anybody, on the policyholder side, a professional criminal who's stealing from the insurance company, there's unlimited amount of resources to have those people investigated and prosecuted. But until the APA came around, there were no resources to defend consumers from carrier side fraud. As a matter of fact, the words didn't even exist. We had to coin the term carrier side fraud. We had to coin the term insurer fraud. It did not exist because nobody believed it even happened, except, we have this saying, insurer fraud is the crime that doesn't exist until it happens to you. And then you wake up and you see those commercials for the insurance industry. It's all bullshit, just to get you to the point of sale, just to get you to leave that company and come to this company to buy your policy. That's all they're doing. They're just swapping around policies.
All right. So just to clarify, your celebration includes more balloons and pizza then and less shots, it sounds like.
I'll tell you this. The next arrest, like I said, that's one down. We have 100,000 more to go.
Absolutely. And you got to take the one when you can, though.
And we're not going to quit. And yes, and P.S., we don't have to have a lot of arrests. From Sandy, one arrest. We got 144,000 claims reopened and $350 million paid out to people who had been cheated. We got FEMA to commit to sort of rehabbing their claims process with the National Flood Insurance Program. Whether or not they did that.
Crazy thing that there's only one guy arrested in all that. Is like he's the only one that did any of that. He was one guy a part of all of that? How is that even possible that there's only one guy? That doesn't make sense.
It makes sense when you start talking about, campaign contributions and you start talking about the power of the insurance industry. Again, look, I understand, we all believe in government for the people, by the people, and of the people. But you cannot deny the impact of money on American politics and how this country is run. And it's really a function of, this is a very powerful industry by the very nature that they have a lot of money to throw around. And by the way, whose money are they throwing around? Who paid for that commercial? Who pays those $15 billion of advertising? Who pays for all those campaign contributions and PAC contributions and lobbying money? That's our money. That's your premium money they're spending. They take our money and they use it to increase their power, and then they use that power against us. And by the way, it's not everybody. It's not every insurance company. It's not every employee at every insurance company. There's a lot of decent people on the other side. But there's fraudsters, and they need to go, just like the fraudsters on the consumer side need to go.
Like popping zits. I think we need a lot of women involved because they love popping zits for some reason. I don't know what that's about. They can't help themselves. It's crazy.
I love you, Matt. You're such a
If anybody wanted to get involved with this, where should they go?
apassociation.org and go to membership. If you're a professional in the industry, look, we don't take money from the government. We don't take money from the insurance industry. We are funded 100% by our members, and our members are people that are in the business and see this every day in the field. That you can't. There's a couple things we've put into place with the APA to make sure our integrity is beyond question. Number one is there's no referrals. We don't give referrals. You're not gonna. It's just not gonna happen.
I say that about the LinkedIn commentary from the demagogues of the other side. That's their big thing about the APA when they're trying to sully the name of American Policyholder Association to make it seem like they don't actually have any kind of information. They'll say, though, if you really look into the organization, they're just funneling claims to attorneys.
Show me one.
Really?
So listen, they got to say something.
Right.
If you're an insurer defense attorney, That's how you make your money. You put your nose deep up the ass of the insurance industry. And that's how you get hired. And that's how you make your money. And they got to say something. But hey, show me one. I have been told that if I give a referral to anybody, and I do have consumers who call me in and like, hey, can you tell me an APA attorney? I have been told I will be fired if I do that. It is in our bylaws. It is against what the APA can do. And the second thing that we do to make sure there's integrity is you cannot be on our board of directors. You cannot be an executive. You can't be in my position if you make any money in the claims business. You cannot be an attorney who does claims. You cannot be a public adjuster. You can't be a restoration contractor and be an executive on the board of directors. So number one, that makes sure they're not saying we're a shill for any given industry. And number two, if you're a member, you're reassured that, hey, I'm not just doing this and pumping my business with the calls that come in, or I'm not giving it to my friend. I'm not, so, we're very, very clear about that. The negative of that is this. I am not a claims expert. I don't know how a roof is built. You know what I mean? I've learned a little bit here and there. I don't know how to be a public adjuster or how to litigate a claim as a plaintiff's attorney. So we have to rely on our board advisors and professional members, people that are in the field every day. And you're the ones that see the fraud and bring it to us. You're the ones that give us inside information. I have a question. I've called you before about questions on engineering issues. I'll call. I have some go-to people. Okay, can you answer this for me? And, we have to not be afraid to say, I don't know. I'm not here as an expert in all this stuff. I am here to push an organization forward and empower the people that are in the field that see these crimes being committed against your customers, the people that put food on your table, and empower you to say, this looks wrong. I'm an APA member. I'm going to bring this to the APA Consumer Protection Unit. That's our version of the SIU, the first ever SIU in American history that gathers potential criminal complaints against the insurance industry. And I will turn it over to them and let them investigate and see. So if you want to be a part of the team, absolutely go to apassociation.org, go to membership, and you go down to professional member and join. It's $84 a month. It's the cost of a cup of coffee a day. And I'm not talking bougie Starbucks. I'm talking 7-Eleven coffee a day. And if you like if you like the work we're doing, buy us a cup of coffee. That's all.
Yeah, a cheap one. 7-Eleven coffee. That's what you're getting. So I appreciate you being on again, Doug. It's always fun having you on and giving us a little bit of hope as we all deal with the bullshit involved in insurance claims on both sides. It's nice to see that someone is out there looking out for the little guy. Thanks again for being on.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, is this live, by the way?
It is.
Okay. So I can't say much. If you weren't going to run this for another week or two, I could say more. But the APA is coming out with a white paper, a study. It's actually already been released to the press, but I have to wait till it runs before I can say much. I will be at FAPIA speaking on Saturday. I will give a little bit more details about it. Hopefully the article will have come out by then because I promised this one reporter we work a lot with exclusivity. But we have done a study on this nonsense excuse they say that all these companies in Florida are losing money and going under. And they're saying the same with Louisiana. Again, we're starting to see it in other areas, Texas, et cetera, because of frivolous litigation. We have uncovered that is complete nonsense. We have stats and figures and statistics. And I'll give you one tiny little one. The statistic they love to throw, which, by the way, this started with the Florida insurance commissioner, who quit in the middle of the worst insurance crisis that anybody can ever remember in their lifetime to go work for the insurance industry for 2 very lucrative jobs. He produced these statistics to say Florida has 8% of all of the homeowners insurance claims in the country and 78% of all the litigation. That means there's frivolous litigation. It's these, ambulance chasing public adjusters and greedy attorneys that are making this happen. What we found out is that Florida has 8% of all homeowners insurance claims in the country and north of 60% of all complaints in the country against homeowners insurance companies. they are by far the dominant. Florida companies, there's something called the complaint index, that compares what percentage of premium that you're doing, what percentage of business you're doing, and versus how many complaints you have. So there's parity. An equal complaint index would be like a 1. That means you have the roughly, if you have 10% of the market, you should have 10% of the complaints. A complaint index of 1 would be you have 10%, you have 10% of the complaints.
Your even share. Yeah.
Some of these companies have complaint indexes of 5, of 8,
So 5 times the amount that they
of
should.
10, of 15, of 20.
Wow.
Yes.
All right. Once that comes out, I'd love to have you on again. We'll do a breaking bull session, middle of the week, doesn't matter. Whenever it comes out, let's get on again and really post something about that. That way you can talk about all these fun things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, I'll give you a little teaser. I'm not even supposed to say that much, but your audience has been patient listening to us. We're lunatics, so we'll throw them a little bone.
That's freaking awesome. I can't wait to read this thing. All right, cool. Well, thanks again, Doug. I'll see you at FAPIA actually, if you're going to be there. So I'll see you next
year at the APA Membership Summit in Dallas. November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It is free for APA members, and only APA members can go. And who we're going to have there is the Chair Matthew Smith of the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud. We're going to have Professor Jay Feynman, who wrote the book Delay, Deny, Defend. If you haven't read it yet, go buy it right now. Tell your wife you're not going to see her for a day, and you're going to read it. And then we're going to have an economist from the Federal Reserve Board of Trustees, who are Board of Governors, who did a study showing how complicit, how biased insurance commissioners are. How many insurance commissioners go to work for the insurance industry and they go back, they call it the revolving door. They looked at the revolvers, and what they found is while they were in office, because they know damn well where they're going to work next and how much money they're going to make, how many of their decisions are so biased toward the insurance industry. And she's going to come present on that. And this is, serious people are coming.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. The APA Summit last year was fantastic. And my wife says that she already knows that I'm just going to be reading this book for the next day. All right. We got to let the audience go. Thanks again, Doug. If you guys have any questions, reach out to Doug at the APA. You can go to apassociation.org. And I forgot to run this, so I'm going to do it at the end there.